welcome to this week's training in business immigration. My name is Chad Graham with the law firm of Graham Adair, and today I'm joined by my esteemed partner, Sam Adair. Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing great today, Chad. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Sam, today we're going to talk a little bit about premium processing, which seems like it can be a really straightforward topic, but there are a lot of nuances to go through. For those who are new to premium processing, it became a phenomenon back in 2001. Before that, it wasn't even available. But as processing times started getting longer, there was a need for cases to be approved faster. So USCIS came up with this idea of charging a large fee. Back then, it was $1,000 to be able to get cases approved faster within 15 days. When you file a case with premium processing, it goes through to the premium processing unit. These are special officers of the USCIS, and I use special in the true meaning of the word special, not in the sarcastic meaning of the word special. These are good men and women who are good at their jobs, and they have lighter caseloads, so they're able to get through these cases faster. So there's some clear benefit there in filing a case with premium processing. But Sam, let me ask you a question. Can you advise companies on which types of cases are currently eligible for premium processing?
Absolutely. So the cases eligible for premium processing today fall into two major categories. Those are going to be your non-immigrant visa work categories, as well as the I-140 stage of the permanent residence process. So on the non-immigrant visa side, your H-1B, L1, O1, TN applications are all eligible for premium processing, along with a handful of others. But the most recent development on premium processing on the NIV side, which is actually some really good news, is that the USCIS has started again to adjudicate cases that are filed together at the same time when they're filed with premium processing. So let's say that I file an I-129 for an H-1B along with an H-4 and an H-4 EAD application for a spouse. USCIS now is going to adjudicate all three of those applications together. For a number of years, they had been separating those petitions and only adjudicating the H-1B, which left spouses in a situation where their applications were pending for months and months and months on end after the principal beneficiary's application had been approved. So that was a very positive
Huge
recent
benefit.
development that we've seen. Yeah, huge
Yeah.
benefit. On the I-140 side, which is either the first or second step in most green card applications, you've been able to premium process EB2 and EB3 applications based on perm for a really long time. You've also been able to premium process EB1A and EB1B applications for extraordinary ability or outstanding researchers. And recently, USCIS expanded premium processing to include I-140 multinational manager petitions and I-140 national interest waiver petitions. So we have seen some growth in the program, and I think that's positive. I will say that there are some times where we advise clients not to use premium processing on an I-140 application. Primarily, if there is some time, we encourage them to let their EB1A or EB1B or EB1C application sort of roll through the process without pushing it forward too quickly, because oftentimes we see a higher rate of requests for evidence or RFEs on those I-140 petitions that are premium processed when they fall under the EB1 classification. So it's important, I think, to review that strategy with your attorney to make sure that premium processing makes sense on your case, or at least that you understand what the risks and possibilities are.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up because a lot of times as we think about the pros and cons, we think the obvious pro is a case goes faster. The obvious con is that there's additional costs, but there are other things to evaluate as well. So thanks for bringing that up. Now, I'm going to ask you to put on your sorting hat. No, the sorting hat doesn't do predictions. It's the Professor Trelawney's tea leaves, where you can
Okay.
tell the future and you can decide what's going to happen. So thinking about that, looking at your tea leaves, then what types of petitions do you think will be that are not currently eligible for premium processing will become eligible in the near future to potentially distant future?
Yeah, so I should throw the disclaimer out there that I dropped out of Hogwarts after only my second year, so my ability to see into the future is limited. But that said, we do know that USCIS is working on a program to expand premium processing to F1 OPT and to certain other student visa classifications, which will be a welcome development. Ideally, I would love to see premium processing expanded to adjustment of status applications so that you could really condense the time it takes to process a green card. USCIS has made no indication that they're exploring that right now as a possibility. And I think that the probability of that is very low, but it would be such a great thing. And we could really cut the time it takes to process a green card if we were able to premium process those adjustment of status applications as well.
Wouldn't that be nice? The petitions that are currently taking, what, a year and a half, cut down to
Yeah,
15 days? That would
yeah,
be
you could cut that
significant.
down to 15 days and maybe process a green card in, a couple of months as opposed to closer to 2 years.
Yeah.
Again,
So
don't think that's really likely to happen.
probably not. So thinking about some benchmarking, a lot of companies, as they're thinking about their policies, like to know what other companies in the market are doing. There was a survey that was conducted last summer on specifically on the premium processing question, asking companies under what circumstances they premium process a case. There are some companies, a little over a third, 34%, say that they will premium process a case no matter what. They really see it as an employee benefit and a way to help their employees out. Not necessarily that it's needed, but just sort of for peace of mind. They'll premium process any case that they can. So that's 34%. 46% said that they would premium process a case only if there's a business need or a legal need. So when we're thinking about a business need, let's say, for example, the employee needs to travel abroad for meetings or something like that. They need to apply for a new H-1B visa stamp before they come back. In order to do that, they need to get their current status extended. That would be a business need because the need arises as a result of the travel. A legal need would be where somebody's status is going to expire unless they get an approved petition in place. So let's say somebody's H-1B status is expiring, they need to get that case premium processed in order to maintain status. That would be a legal need. So 46% of companies will say for a business need or a legal need, they will premium process, but they won't premium process every case. And then 12% of companies that responded said they will only premium process if there's a legal need, not even if there's a business need. So just if there's a legal need to help somebody maintain status. So thinking about that then, Sam, if you're advising a company that wants to be prudent in their spending, control costs when it comes to premium processing, what would your advice be?
So for me, this really kind of falls into those three primary tiers that you've listed out here. And that is, first and foremost, if there is a legal need, companies that want to control their spend as much as possible can look to spend on those types of cases where you have to have an adjudication on a case as quickly as possible for somebody to be able to maintain their status, to like continue working without interruption. The second sort of tier, I would say, would be business needs or business necessity cases, where it's really critical for a business unit that somebody have the ability to travel and they need to get an approval before they're able to do that, or they need to be able to start working, and without the approval, they can't do that. So I think on that business need front would kind of be my second tier. And then the third tier would really be more in terms of the employee benefit. And I think that, the companies that have sort of the most expansive programs are going to spend for premium processing on that third tier. So in most instances, it's really for the benefit of the employee that they would consider that $2,500 premium processing fee. And often that's going to be for personal travel or just peace of mind in general for the employee. Certainly not necessary, but in some cases it could be beneficial.
So in the same survey, there was a question companies were asked about premium processing, and quite a number said that they take it on a case by case basis, which I would advise against. I think companies should think through it, have a uniform policy, because once you start to do that, then when somebody gets the benefit and another person doesn't, it can create a lot of heartache and morale issues within the foreign national population. So then, Sam, if you're advising a client who is trying to be competitive in a tough job market and use premium processing as an employee benefit, how does that change your answer in terms of how you would advise them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would typically want to go through and use premium processing as a company on H-1B change of employer cases if it's a competitive job market and employees or potential candidates are looking to have an adjudication before they come to start working at a company. On an H-1B change of employer application, legally, it is permissible for an employee to come and start working for the new company once that H-1B petition has been received at the USCIS. In a tight labor market, a lot of employees are going to want to know that their case has been approved before they make that leap to the new employer. And it makes sense. They want to go from a sure thing to a sure thing to ensure that there's no disruption to their ability to continue working in the United States. I would say that in many instances, premium processing on an H-1B change of employer is good for peace of mind. But when you look at the probabilities of an H-1B change of employer application being approved, it's definitely not necessary. And companies can work with their immigration attorneys, work with the employee to make sure that everybody understands the risks and how low those risks are. And they can potentially avoid premium processing on those cases. But in that tight job market, that may be a tough hand to play. And you may just want to go with premium processing in those instances.
Yeah, that makes sense. So thinking about the H-1B lottery that's coming up, the H-1B cap, and considering what the cost is now, it was $1,000 when it first started. Now it's $2,500. I mean, that's a lot of money. In some cases, it can almost double the total cost of filing a case. And so a company, filing, let's say 100 applications in a given year with premium processing, that's $250,000. So thinking about the H-1B cap for companies that have, people selected in the lottery, what's your advice on whether to premium process that case or not?
To me, there's very little value in premium processing an H-1B cap case, simply because that case, while it can be filed on April 1st and it can be approved within 2 weeks of that, the case is not going to be effective until October 1st. And so in most instances, getting that decision early doesn't really provide much of a benefit to anyone, the employee or the company. Now, there is an argument that it does give a little bit of peace of mind that, yes, your case has been approved. But again, when you look at the approval rates on most H-1B cases, the assumption should be, as long as you're working with a good attorney and you have a pretty clean petition, that application is going to be approvable. So to me, premium processing on those H-1B cap cases is sort of throwing a fair amount of money at something that really has very little benefit. I think there are other instances where using premium processing just makes a lot more sense.
Agreed. So we've covered a lot of ground here today, Sam. Any concluding thoughts before we wrap up?
I just want to echo what you said earlier. I think it's really important to have a policy in place. It makes making these decisions so much easier. And I think it's important for companies to kind of think about this holistically from the business side, the legal side, as well as the employee retention benefit side of this. And then, come up with a plan that makes sense for you and for your department and how much you want to spend on immigration.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about some of the nuances of premium processing, a topic that can seem fairly straightforward, but there's a lot to it. We encourage you to reach out to us if you have any questions or would like to consult and develop a company policy or revise a company policy. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.